Hey guys, Lucky Ojo here, and I'm going to share with you my take on the current conspiracies surrounding Doki Doki Literature Club, and even add my own spin on our recent playthrough. So this video is going to ruin the game for you, so this is your spoiler alert. Stop the video now if you don't want to ruin the game's story. If you do want to see a playthrough, I will link my recent playthrough in the description below, as well as the videos from Game Theorist that I'm going to use to base my theories off of. So to start off, I'm going to need to summarize the Game Theorist videos, and I'm going to quickly be paraphrasing this, so please go check out their videos on your own. They were amazing, like truly amazing. They are extremely well done, great editing, very entertaining videos. There's 2 videos. Please go see them. Their links are in the description. So we're going to start off explaining their videos. So we need to know that we already know Monika was editing game codes, including changing files on the computer, etc., because she was self-aware, right? We knew she was self-aware. If we look back from her very first poem, we knew that she was self-aware. Now, we also know that that was not limited to Monika, because after our ending, after we deleted the file and started a new game, Sayori took over the literature club. And when she took over the literature club, at the end of the day, when everyone else leaves, she's the final one to leave, and then she becomes self-aware. And she's like, oh, hey, by the way, thank you. Thank you for everything. And she's like, and I mean everything, because I know everything that's happened. And like, she goes on to explain a little bit. And then the game kind of glitches a little bit and shows you the screen that Monika was in before. And she's like, oh, now you can be with just me. And it kind of gives you a hint that like she wants you all to herself as well. So in an effort for Monika to get just you with her, because you two are the only real people in her mind, she goes behind the scenes editing the characters themselves, editing their actual character files to make her more appealing and make the other characters less appealing, right? So she takes Sayori from a lovable, little friend to depressed, very depressed. They change Natsuki from flirty mean to a raging jerk. They take Yuri from slightly clingy to a self-harming psychopath. Now, Yuri is where I disagree with the Game Theorist, but we're going to cover that at the end. Now, the point the Game Theorists were making is this should not work in a visual novel. Visual novel characters don't have AI. They go down a pre-written dialogue script with a preset of choices. So why would these girls have the ability to have this deeper AI, have these emotions, these characteristics not found in visual novel? Why would they have these character files that allow them to have this deeper AI? And the answer is they're not from a visual novel. They're from a different game. So how, you ask, right? Like, this is kind of definitely a big ask. And the Game Theorists actually go back and they actually prove it. So the first thing that they find of proof is a blacked out poem. So one of the poems that you find is your special poem. Everything's blacked out, and the only thing not blacked out says nothing is real. Now, they went through the effort of actually taking a picture of it, raising the gamma all the way, and you can actually read it. So I've taken the same picture, and I'll have it up here as well, and I'll read it to you. Irregular heartbeat, heart palpitations, arrhythmia. I search and search. Eye scanning everything I can find on their symptoms. What is this? Shortness of breath? Chest pain? Dizziness? No, this is all wrong. Alyssa's symptoms are nowhere near this simple. I've seen it twice now. The screams of pain, sickeningly pale skin, vomiting blood. There is no other explanation other than that Rainier's information was a complete and utter lie. This can't be a coincidence. It's not possible. I don't know how much of this Rainier is behind, but I do know this. There is something horribly wrong with this family, and I accepted this invitation to become a part of it. I can hear Alyssa's screams through the walls now. I listen helplessly. Rainier said that he would be with her shortly. Is he in her room now? Why is she screaming louder than before? So, a couple things about that. The most important part, it calls out family, and I'm using quotes for the family here. It kind of sounds like, Resident Evil 7 style or whatever is what they use as an example. To be like a cult, right? Like something's very wrong with him, which may point to experimentation. And the person that's writing this, the first part, it doesn't even seem like a poem at all, right? These look like symptoms. And then they've seen all these, they're seeing all these symptoms, and then they're trying to diagnose, and they've seen it twice now. So it sounds like this is a doctor, and now he's trying to figure out what's wrong with this person, and they found one other person that has it. So it kind of seems like this Alyssa they're talking about may have been experimented on. And like this, the part that becomes interesting is this entire scenario is eerily similar to the book that Yuri gives you in the game called The Portrait of Markov. The book with the ominous-looking eye on the cover. So, the first playthrough you get through the game, you ask Yuri to explain it, and she explains it like this. Basically, it's about this girl in high school who moves in with her long-lost younger sister. But as soon as she does so, her life gets really strange. She gets targeted by these people who escaped from a human experiment prison, and while her life is in danger, she needs to desperately choose who to trust. And you're like, okay, that's interesting. And it kind of adds, like, relevance to what you're doing. It's almost metaphorical, and she likes metaphors. Then you go to version 2. Basically, it's about this religious camp that was turned into a human experiment prison. All the people trapped here have this human trait that turns them into killing machines that lust for blood. But the facility gets even worse, and they start selectively breeding people by cutting off their limbs and affixing them to... And then she cuts off, because she realizes she's getting kind of weird. So now, this part gets interesting because if you base off what you heard before now, with this poem that was hiding in the background, that is the story of the game the Doki Doki girls come from. So that's pretty much episode 1 of the Game Theorist video summarized. Now it's important now to go through 2, because this is extremely important to my theory. So, in our playthrough, Monika deleted all the other girls' character files, and in the end we had to delete hers in order to get the game's ending. But there were more to the character files than most people understood. I'm going to skip through most of them. Seriously, go back and check. There's some really cool stuff on them. The important ones we need to know, we'll start with Monika's, and then we're going to go back to Sayori's. So Monika's character file actually brings in this text, and then she goes through a whole series of things that she says. The important part of it, she mentions a series of things. She talks about deja vu from the third eye. I mentioned third eye because we're going to be hearing it a lot from now on. She also says if they remember she wants to save her friends, and if they remember their time with her in the other worlds, they should remember what she tells them. And saying that you and her can be the heroes, which implies that she actually wasn't the bad person at all. And that plays into my theory, actually. So, like, everyone thinks Monika was the antagonist of this game. I'm going to tell you she's not, and I'll tell you at the very end why she's not. And that was the very interesting part. When you break down her character file, she is trying to save them all. And basically she's saying, there's also another section in there where she talks about all the others have had the same experience, basically of going to a different world, meaning they all come from a different game. It actually really supports this theory. So this is where things get kind of crazy. So you may remember Natsuki gives a poem in the second act that is complete gibberish. It's just like numbers and letters or whatever, but decoded, it's base 64. Long story short, so it's a language. If you decode base 64, it becomes a poem titled "Open Your Third Eye," and this poem is about the pleasure of stabbing someone to death, which would seem out of place with Natsuki, obviously, but that's now the second character we've mentioned the third eye from. What's interesting, and I didn't notice this in my playthrough, I should have, Yuri's last poem was covered in blood. Her last line states, "Her third eye is drawing me closer." So now it's 3 characters now that have mentioned the third eye. So now we're going to go back to the portrait of Markov. Remember that the cult had these people that had the trait for the lust for blood we talked about. And then there's clearly an eye on the cover of this book. This is where Sayori's character file comes in. I won't go through the details of how you have to decode Sayori's character file, or the other ones, by the way. Like, you don't just, like, open up their character file and this information is there. Please go to Game Theorist and watch their video. It is insane, like, the method that it needs to be used to decode information out of this. But, long story short, if you can actually decode Sayori's character file, you can get a QR code that will take you to a website called projectlibertina.com. And in projectlibertina.com, there's a result of a medical exam done on a girl named Libertina. Now, in this exam, there's many references to the third eye. But the important line to be drawn here is that Libertina is most likely Yuri. And the reason I say that, the dates match up. So the dates match up with Libertina. Libertina was born in 2001. Which means she would be 17 years old in 2018, which would make her in the senior year in Doki Doki. And she's also of average height and weight. She's the only senior in Doki Doki for that matter. So it makes perfect timing sense. Also, most importantly, are the twitching, biting, harm to self, etc. noted into the document about the third eye and what, after she opens it, like harm to doctor, harm to self, and all these different things, which are exactly what happened to Yuri in the second act. Very important to notice, this also comes into my theory. I'll point to it in a minute. But these are all points pointing that Libertina is very likely Yuri, just by a different name. What's very interesting, very, very interesting, is there are actually things in the Doki Doki Literature Club shop that point to Libertina being Yuri. So if you go to the shop in Doki Doki, and I've taken some pictures that I'll throw up here as well at the same time, you can see there are two sets of pictures that indicate the third eye and it potentially coming from Yuri. One is a picture called Yuri Unhinged, and on that picture, you see Yuri very calmly sitting, not very unhinged necessarily, creepy maybe, but not unhinged. She looks very calm, holding a knife, staring at you, and next to her, like, lo and behold, it is an eye staring you right in the face with the words "help me" written right above it. Like, Illuminati confirmed, there's an eyeball. Goes right back with a third eye, right back to Libertina. Next one is a series of, like, these custom-made drawings with quotes from the game that look a little more creepy than the rest of the very cutesy things in Doki Doki. And they have red strings coming from them. The other three girls all have the red strings attached to them somewhere. Yuri has what appears to be a flower, and they are all coming out of her. And that looks like she is affecting them in some capacity. Like they are all tied to Yuri in some way. That points more towards the third eye. And so, I tell you all that to summarize the Game Theorist. Now, here's where my theory begins to change. Now, all of this is completely based on whether or not the Yuri playthrough is canon. Just making sure that everyone understands that. So, if the Yuri playthrough is the canon playthrough, this theory holds true. So, during our first playthrough, everything was running completely smooth, right? Completely, cutesy. Everything was running fine up until Yuri shows up at our house, right? So right before she did come, we did go to Sayori, and she was depressed. But we had heard before that she'd had depression long before the events of the game had even began. We just had never noticed it as the main character. So that was actually not out of the ordinary from before. So that shouldn't have been unexpected results. She was already depressed, but she was not suicidal. She was just depressed. But when we go back home and we start working with Yuri, everything appears good up until we cut our fingers. When we cut our fingers, this prompts Yuri to leap at us and suck the blood from our fingers. She does this completely unintentional. She has no idea what happens. It's like an instinctive response, and boom, suck the blood from our fingers. She immediately pulls back, apologizes, says she doesn't know what came over her. And then, we do this weird thing, by the way, which I don't really understand, by the way. We just, suck on her finger or whatever, or, licked her hand. I can't remember, actually, to be honest with you. It was super weird, and it was, this awkward way of making her feel better. But the point is This is the actual turning point of the game. Up until this point, I don't actually believe Monika actually has edited a single file in the game. I tell you this because it is extremely important from this point forward. Understand, this is the focal point of the entire game. So, at this point, we were making the crafts, right? We continue to make the crafts after I get cut. We walk out, we walk back in, or whatever. We do a time lapse. After the time lapse, we leave. And then when we leave, we bump into Sayori, who is now behaving strangely. Right after Yuri leaves, she confesses her love to you in a last-ditch attempt for add happiness directly before her suicide. At this point, we know Monika was editing the code on the characters. What I am suggesting is that Monika did not edit that code until we were working on that project with Yuri. In the time gap between when she sucks on our finger and when we leave the house, during the time we were working on those projects. Why, you ask? That is because seeing the blood on our finger triggered an instinct in Yuri, and when she ingested our blood, that opened her third eye. Because she is Libertina, and as you saw in the report, she has the third eye. She can open it, but she is incapable of closing it. So that's right, we opened Yuri's third eye. It may have been unintentional, but we caused the terrible events of this game to start to spiral out of control. We opened her third eye. Now, we already know from the Libertina documents that once the eye is open and capable of shutting it, it has the ability to affect the minds of those in her family, and I use quotes again, which should be, and probably are, the girls in the game, much like the Portrait of Markov talks about anyone in that camp, right? So I imagine at this point, those are the people that get affected. So the girls in Doki Doki are all affected by the mental strain of the third eye being opened from this point forward. So now, this is why Monika is driven from casually writing about her self-awareness to actually editing the character files, going forward to kill her friends, starting with Sayori. Now, that being said, I don't believe the code change alone was enough to actually make Sayori commit suicide. I think it was a mixture of her depression and of her depression deepening because of the code, but I also think it's the mental effects being thrust on her from Yuri's third eye. And the reason is the impact was the most on her was the relative proximity of Sayori to Yuri when the eye was opened. The eye was opened because Sayori was so close to us to begin with, because Yuri was at our house and we are friends with Sayori and we lived right down the road. Sayori was the closest person there. So when that eye opened, the largest psychological impact would have hit Sayori. So the combination of that and the code completely cracked her psyche, which I think in turn brought her to come to us, and which also, when she talked to us, that's why she immediately screamed, fell on her knees, and then ran away. I think that was the mental effects of the third eye that were causing that, and then it eventually caused her, in lieu of getting bloodlust and in lieu of going crazy in that kind of sense and like lusting for blood, Sayori, the sweet, childish, innocent girl, didn't want to go down that path. She killed herself instead. So I think out of pity almost, really, it prompts Monika to delete Sayori's character file, which we already know she doesn't actually delete it, but she restarts the game. But at this point, it's too late for Yuri. The third eye is already taken over. Her mental state is degraded. So this is what actually starts that larger set of arguments between her and Natsuki and her deranged obsession with you. But I think it's because the obsession with you is originating from her lust for blood. Your blood specifically, the blood of the one who opened the third eye that's originally mentioned from the Portrait of Markov, or at least referenced in the Portrait of Markov. So it is not until Yuri's character file is actually deleted and returned after deleting Monika in the game's ending that her AI is returned to a pre-third eye state. And honestly, I kind of believe that that's one of the reasons Monika was so adamant to delete her friend's data. Like, I think she removed Sayori, like, after they got so far down the road from the third eye, I think Monika deleted them out of pity more than it was out of envy. Like, she may not have fully understood it either, but I think Monika was actually not the antagonist at all. So, like, I actually feel like Monika wasn't fully in control of her own actions. I feel like it's more like Elsa in Frozen. Like, she was self-aware, so she had, like, powers that she may not have been full in control of. But she was being influenced by the third eye from Yuri. But in the same context, even with the third eye and the lust for blood she should have been feeling, she still never deleted the characters of her friends. She moved them, but moved them in a way that would reset the AI necessary to bring them back to normal, bring them from the brink of destruction, and bring them in a way that would save them. And that shows true dedication. So I truly believe that she not only was the hero in the new game that's coming out, which the game theorists theorize, I believe she was really a hero in this one, not the antagonist. In reality, we are the antagonist. And that's the shocking reality of this game. We are the true villain of DDLC, and there is nothing, like, even if it was unintentional, there's nothing we could have done. And that's what it is. We were the villain of DDLC. So guys, please let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Let me know what your theories are. As always, lay the smackdown on that like button, and we will see you next time.